Welcome to the 2-Month Review, the weekly podcast brought to you by Open Letter and 3%, in which we take a giant book, break it down bit by bit, section by section, talk about it, analyze it, have fun, make jokes. I am Chad Post from Open Letter Books, joined as always by Brian Wood, author of Joytime Killbox. I almost fucked up your name. Your name is so easy, and I literally forgot and had to look at the screen. It's Brian, that guy.
Yeah, it's a tough one, I know, but it happens.
It's been a month. It has been.
I do this bit with my class every first day of class where I just do my very best to mispronounce every single person's name. And sometimes you get a name like Chad Post, and you just got to figure out a way to just to butcher it.
Kahad.
Yeah.
Puosta. Puast. I think I'm referencing this in this section today. I feel proud.
Really? You're referencing this.
I'm
okay.
Not. There's two. There's a joke one and there's a fun one, but we'll get to that shortly, I'm sure. How's life? You missed. I know that you are in California and you missed the smoke attack. Apparently, that
I know the last time I was in California, they were having wildfires here. So I got my fair share of it not too long ago. So
I was in Vermont where the air is clear and freedom is large, and then I drove back into here and it was already kind of over. So I missed the chaos of it, but the pictures are pretty stunning. So
yeah, it's kind of fun to wake up to that weird Mars nuclear apocalypse haze.
Yeah,
it's really bad. Right,
yeah.
where the sun's red, and you can just kind of stare at it without hurting your eyes.
That's what all the pictures I saw from yesterday are like. This little dot of red, that's the sun, and then that kind of chaotic look. Wow, glad I missed it because I would rather my lungs get injured by smoke that I choose to imbibe instead of the smoke that I don't.
My body, my choice.
I like free will with my smoking, my smoke inhalation. But so what do you think? You're caught up? We're on page 204 is what we're reading to today. I didn't mention this season is The Remembered Part, the third book in Fresán's trilogy. We are at a point where the first part is basically the ex-writer on an airplane thinking and ranting and drinking and going on and on and on in his way and sort of justifying his own behaviors, his own writing, his own situation, taking down various other people and everyone else. It's a very wonderful and fun part. But what do you think so far?
I'm liking it so far. Obviously, I'd prefer it to go places, but the being trapped in this it almost feels kind of neurotic in some ways, but it's great because it's very aware of itself, which I like. If it wasn't so aware of itself, it'd be tiresome for me. But the fact that the writer is very well aware of, it's like, this is me, these are my warts and all, but let me describe them to you in very good detail. I really, it makes it endearing, and so it's a fun ride. I like it. Yeah,
and it's kind of like proof of concept of the ex-writer's writing style.
Yeah,
he's like, nobody likes this, everybody hates this. Everything's like even when they're like, do you want to write this nonfiction book about Bob Dylan? You get all about Bob Dylan. He's like, yeah, and he gets started and they're like, oh fuck no, you write just the way you write nonfiction.
Oh no. Could we have some dialogue with dialogue tags so we know who's saying, and we're like
slow down there.
Even though they don't know anything about it, you might need to give it to IKEA. We've decided IKEA would be better to write about this Nobel Prize winning literature.
Still, I know that Rodrigo thinks it's amazing.
Bob Dylan.
So Bob Dylan, great, awesome, whatever. Nobel Prize for literature.
Yeah, I never asked him about it because I'm sure he got a ton of questions on it. I assume he recoils.
I think he thinks it's great. I think he actually really great. And I think part of I don't know if he said this or someone else said this, but one of the sort of takes is that all these old Swedes really wanted to meet their hero before you know what? We have the power to grant you an award that would allow us to meet you in a very intimate setting. So
what do you think? Bob Dylan or a Kazakhstan poet we've never heard of? Let's just do Dylan. Yeah, sounds good. All right. Yeah.
Next up is gonna be like James Cameron or some other nonsense.
Yeah.
I don't know why James Cameron came to mind. But anyway, so yeah, so this section, there's a lot of fun little bits in it. I don't know, to recap it. There's really still on the plane, still pissed, still talking, still going on. I know that you wanted to focus on there are a couple of like plot point things that pop up in here. One is that the X-Writer, not dissimilar from Rodrigo, has had a cult book that is called, his first novel, which was Natural Something. And that was very, very, very popular and got him a lot of attention. It seemed to be the start of his like long career. And then his second book, which is sort of a follow-up to that, is written the way that he writes his books now. And that kind of killed his career. And then he started wanted to write a new trilogy that begins with The Impossible Story, which is long and crazy and gets involved in like a political situation that he refers to that then gets him sent away into essentially like exile or outside of whatever, leaving his country for Mexico and for the desert. Still can't find the name of that first one, but it doesn't matter. And then there's a little bit of talk of his related to his career too. It's like a very big career section of being a writer and being on the circuit, being on the conference circuit, getting invited to place to place. He used to, and they never pay you, but the people who host it are paid well. And, and you just have to go there and maybe you'll like, get to say some things to some audience who maybe will read you, but probably won't. They probably won't like you. Maybe you'll get a hook up with a groupie, like that's all you're going to get. You like are stuck on this circuit forever because it's better to be seen than it is to write. He's got all of his good rants there. And there's a long section that we can get into in which he's more or less giving advice from one of these conference panels to younger writers over how he thinks they should write. And it's basically all the advice that you, Brian Wood, would not give to a writer. And that most other people would be like, please don't, get the fuck out of here. Like with that. Like, no, thank you. So yeah, very fun section. But what stood out to you? You wanted to talk about the prizes, right?
Yeah, I'm fascinated, especially with a lot of the pop culture references and the cultural references that are in here. Like you take somebody like obviously Kubrick, and Kubrick's work is important to the writer, and Kubrick wasn't really an award winner,
right?
Which is kind of baffling, right? With how important, and these are like touchstones of cinema. No awards. And then you look at, Kurt Vonnegut, nothing. Right. Nabokov, nothing really, right? Like, and how important those are in this book as well. And so I find it interesting. And then you get to this, like, I feel like the writer knows they're probably winning nothing, but then there's this nemesis, IKEA, that can win everything and
be a bestseller.
And be a bestseller, and so I find that interesting. And it kind of makes me wonder too, like, I don't know, like when you watch the Academy Awards, for instance, and you have like, there was 2 movies that I really liked this year and they don't win anything. You're like, oh man, does that mean I have bad taste, or does that mean does that mean I'm out of touch? Does that, you start to question, and you're like, no. Like, I know what I like is good. It's just not for everybody. So it doesn't win, or, you try to like start justifying why isn't it winning, or,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm trying to find, there's that list of all the people that he has like that should have won the Nobel Prize, but didn't. National Industry is the name of the X-Writer's first book.
Which I guess it kind of falls apart because there's a lot of talk about Saul Bellow in here as well, but obviously he's won some awards.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. God, where is it? Oh, here you go. Okay, so it's on page 180. We're talking about the how after IKEA dies in a plane crash, supposedly, although he's resurrected months later by reappearing, suddenly having eaten his girlfriend. Um, he's inside of him writing his book, so he's like a very trans author of both male and female embodiment. But when he's dead, the Nobel is talking about giving an award to him for the first time, or giving an award to a dead man for the first time to IKEA, and he says, this is in the typewriter, American typewriter font, an idea that he remembered having years before, but of course not to apply it to IKEA, but taking a longer view, retrospectively, and awarding it to names like Kurt Vonnegut, or Leo Tolstoy, or Marcel Proust, or John Cheever, or of course Vladimir Nabokov. After taking advantage of that recent and scandalous blank year to clean house and put everything in order, the Nobel Committee would have turned around and awarded a group Nobel to all those writers who deserved it as much as, or in general, even more than many of the past winners. They should do that for Dubravka Ugreshik this year.
There you go.
I agree with your assessment, X-Writer. We need this one. We need this one. I think I sent this to you, but we had been talking about Proust and In Search of Lost Time for like to read, but also like as one of the big references to this. And I saw this dude on Twitter that had a picture of the second volume of In Search of Lost Time and him just flipping it off, and then 1,000 pages of Proust, and I still don't know what the fuck I think about time.
Flipping off a book. What a great.
That's a golden tweet. I would give anything to have come up with that. That would be great. But you asked before we got on here who the odds-on favorites are, right?
Yeah, okay. they do betting odds on Nobel winner. We always look at it when it comes out, and we're always wrong. I don't think we've ever gotten it right, have we?
No, definitely not. But you're okay. This is a little interesting. Okay. Okay. So there's only the sports betting community OLBG. I don't know what that stands for, but this is like their news from what day is this? May 19th was when it was updated, and it is the odds for the Nobel Literature Prize winner for the top 5. Okay. Coming in at tied for second. There's 4 that are tied for second, and then 1 that's a slight favorite. Do you want to take a guess at any of these?
Is there an American on the list?
There is.
For the American, gosh,
obvious one.
I'll go Don DeLillo.
No. Even better.
Better than Don DeLillo.
Better than Don DeLillo, more in keeping with the 2-month review of it all. Favorite.
Gosh. I don't know.
Pynchon.
Oh, okay.
Pynchon's on here.
That would never happen. They're not going to give it to Pynchon.
That would be the best. I would love that.
Yeah.
I would love that. Then also tied with Pynchon and he's at 9-1 odds, 10% chance of winning. Pierre Michon from France, Jan Fosse, who I discovered and published in English for the first time 20 years ago and is now like everyone's darling. Gerald Mornane, who people really like as an Australian writer. I can't get into him to save my life, but he's also published by Delphi Archive. And then who do you think is the favorite? Which is like fucking proof. It's never going to happen. It will never happen because this person is the favorite right now. But you want to guess?
The odds-on favorite.
The odds-on favorite is a Chinese female writer named Shen Sui, who we published. There's no way we can't count on that. Like a 12.5% chance of winning means a 1,000% chance of not receiving the Nobel Prize, because that would be too good for us.
Typically when that blog comes out and they do the list, it's usually like the 19th person they have on their list or something. It's usually like way down. If it's anybody. Yeah.
He updates every year basically with the same people. Yeah.
Yeah. It's always way down.
It's always way down. Absolutely. But yeah, so that's who's on there. But I think you're right. Like when you're saying about the X-Writer in here, that he's like always pissed at these awards, but also would desperately want one.
Yeah, like there's that kind of, I don't know. It's kind of like the like sour grapes kind of thing, right? It's like, oh, I really want, those grapes probably, I don't really need these awards, or these awards go to these kind of books, and I don't really write those kind of books, and like I didn't really want it anyways.
That was very much like Dubravka. She was always like, you can't trust these awards. They're bullshit. The best books never win. It has to be the one that's the most mediocre of the finalists, because that one everyone can agree on. And she's been a judge for like the Impact Now Dublin Literature Award, the one of the big, 150,000 euro sort of awards. And she said it was terrible. That there was a administrator who intervened and switched some of their finalists because they wanted certain other books to be on there and not the ones that the judges had selected. And then at the end, it became 3 men overpowering 2 women on which guy would win.
All right.
It was pretty. She's like, it was awful. Like, you can't take any of this seriously. Don't get upset about it. It's never worth it. And then every time she would be so disappointed. like I feel that strong. I've got that chip every time they announce some of these long lists. The fact that the fact that Georgy Gospodinov won for the International Man Booker, a book that we made an offer on and got fucked around with by his agent, even if they hear this, I don't care. They know it. And they sold it to someone else. Like, it started irritating that one, even though it published his first novel, his second big novel, the one that's better than the most recent one, Physics of Sorrow. And it's one of our best-selling books and has a ton going for it. We did that whole series, the whole 2-month review on it. Mm-hmm. It's still like, congrats, and also go fuck yourself, Norton. And Wiley, both of you, simultaneously.
Yeah, that hurts.
Go fuck yourself into the ocean, or into this cloud smoke of the sky. Feeling a little itchy there. That reminds me, actually, like, that being pissy about that, or a little pissy about it, is like one of my favorite sections in here, where the writer is like clear on, like, he's talking about like how basically like that it's a long section, but it's great, where he's like that writers basically, well, I'll just start with this part where he's like, he's talking about surrounded by writers who, he knew this too because he was also one of them, might be good or bad when it came to writing, but who he knew beyond a shadow of a doubt were, every single one of them, what many people would describe as bad people, profoundly egotistical beings who only thought of themselves because what they did and they did alone. And like him, apocalyptic and destructive people convinced that to create a world of their own, first they had to destroy everyone else's world. And then in the parentheses, there's a Publishers Guild, Association of Translators, unions of screenwriters. But as far as he knew, writers hadn't even bothered to get together to collectively fight for their twisted rights, because nothing mattered to them less than their fellow human writers. Unless, with an icy smile, just going up to share the same stage, they found out that someone else was paid more or less than they were to participate in the same event. End parentheses. And then this is the part. And he, having to choose between being a truly good person or a possibly good writer, had opted without hesitation and putting it all on the line for the latter. He risked it. And so he knew it well. He was a horrible person, an enriched miser, an endangered and dangerous man, someone with a lot of hate to give.
Oh, that one just fed you, huh?
Yeah.
It's like, feed my soul.
Yeah. Sounds a little familiar. Rings a little close to home.
No, this part I thought was interesting because I'm not really friends with a lot of writers. With it talking about what the community was like and what it's like to be friends with another writer. So I found that part very interesting for me, because it's probably just a function of Rochester, where it's a kind of small writers community. So there's not a lot of writers that you could choose if you wanted to be friends with writers. There's not a lot to really interact with, and most of them are not really my age, my circle, that sort of thing. So
yeah, I was just in when I said I was in Vermont, I was in Breadloaf for the translation loaf and environmental writers loaf, and there is historically there, like, the translators are pretty, and environmental writers are pretty chill, for the most part. But there are like little cliques that exist within any setting like that. You're at like essentially like at an adult camp for writing people, for the wordy nerd people, wordy nerd camp. And there is that forces like certain jealousies or moments to come out. And talking about the regular Breadloaf, the writers one, the non-translation, non-environmental, but just general, and how that's really competitive and cliquey. And the director, Jen Groats, was like, oh, that's just in the heads of the attendees. And I thought about this for a long time because someone's like, oh yeah, my partner went, and they said it was like really cutthroat and people were very like, you know, kind of a little bit nasty and a little bit like cliquish and all standoffish. She's like, oh, that's just in their head. That's just in their head. There's no competition. And I was thinking after, like, that's where the fucking competition is. It's in your head. It's not like there's not like you're gonna have like a writing competition at Breadloaf. It's literally going to be in your head, but that doesn't mean it's not real. Like I don't know if that means what you think it means, but
I'm not gonna be overt with my jealousy and my anger towards you getting a review that I didn't get, or you getting
contract.
Yeah,
absolutely. And like AWP has that vibe. I know there's a very famous author that was kind of a douche to you. There is that vibe to AWP of like a cattiness and a competitiveness as well.
Well, the fun thing was, like, I caught on very quickly. Well, I wasn't really, I was writing, but I wasn't published yet or anything like that. Mm-hmm. So I was a writer. I just wasn't a writer, whatever that means. But the whole time I was talking to them, I could tell they were kind of looking for somebody more important to talk to while they were, pretending to talk to me. And I really caught that vibe quickly. So then I just like leached on, like, you want to be like that? I'm going to take you away from everything. Then let's go. Kept talking more, asking deeper questions, more pressing questions.
Just lean in.
Like moving my body into their eyesight so that they couldn't scan the room to find other people to talk to. Yeah. Writers suck, dude. They're the worst.
To be fair, writers are definitely levels above academics. In terms of petty, dumb jealousies and weirdness and like making things awkward. I mean, writers are pretty awkward people. Translators are more awkward than writers. Academics are probably the most awkward of the three. And so when that little like pissing match starts happening, it's like the most awkward pissing matches that you can imagine about things that are just like absolutely ludicrous. And just whatever. Yeah.
I'm a bad person to ask too, though, because I'm a bit of a wimp. I mean, like the publisher could say, Brian, we're not gonna put your name on the cover of your book. Yeah, okay, that's fine. That's fine with me. Whatever.
They don't need to know my name. They can just do whatever.
Brian Wood's a little vanilla. It's kind of like a decaf soy latte. We don't really want that on the cover, so we're gonna be like, yeah, whatever you think, man. That sounds good to me. Let's go. I'm just happy to be here. I'll take whatever you give me. Here's some crumbs. Fill up. No, that's good. I wasn't that hungry anyways. Thank you. So I'm the worst. I'm probably the worst person to ask for.
Oh my God, it's too funny. So
try to maintain good relations at all costs.
Meanwhile, I'm like ready to fire off a little passive aggressive barb to whomever looks funny at me, like look askance and whammo.
we're very yin and yang like that. Yes.
I'm much less so now. Unfortunately, I'd rather have my still have more cutting edge in the writings, and that sometimes can come out, but even that's becoming tame. Aging sucks. Aging makes people weak. There's a bit of that in here too, where he talks about like the younger generation always thinking they're gonna revolt and blah, blah blah. I thought one of the most interesting lines from this, it's like from page 192 till like Jesus, I think it ends on 203, is this kind of like long extended bit about being like advice for writers or being at one of those conferences and things he would say and things he thinks and whatnot. And the one that I thought was kind of most interesting was the idea that this generation is probably the last generation that will read the same books as kids that their parents and their parents' parents did. Which I don't know if that's like, I don't know what to make of that, but it kind of feels a little true. Like, I don't think that Alex is going to read any of the kids' books that I read even. Like, I didn't have Captain Underpants and Dogman or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to think what my kid likes. I mean, there's some ones obviously that I wouldn't read, but like we read Madeline, we read The Giving Tree. When she gets in,
Socialist.
this summer she wants to read The Hobbit, so we're gonna read The Hobbit together. I mean, there's
that's
some, but
like, do you like your daughter?
this is what she wanted, so I said sure. Like, I don't know. I'm not gonna.
How many descriptions of grass do you need in your life? No, I shouldn't diss J.R.R. Tolkien, but I don't know. I read that like in not that age, but like in junior high, and never again. never.
Yeah,
ever.
I think I read it once in like 5th grade or something, and I haven't read it since. So
I was in the
I
play.
I don't remember what even happens in it. There's like a ring or something. I don't know.
So you get the ring at the end. Yeah. I read it, and then the whole trilogy of the Ring, Lord of the Rings. Afterwards, when I was in a play, and in the play, I was like a goblin or an ogre. I don't know. I had to ride someone's shoulders.
That checks out.
Yeah, I had to ride on someone's shoulders. And I was like an ogre, and I had like a line that was basically like, "I will eat you all," like something that's like typical. And the best part was that they got me a whip. So I had like a horse whip, like a long whip. That thing I had to practice over and over again, being on someone's shoulders, cracking this whip. And on the day of our opening, one of my best friends was one of the hobbits, right? And he was supposed to cross the stage in front of me, and I would whip behind them all, and they would scatter, right? And I whipped it, and I hit him in the back of his ankle, and fucking sprawling like across the stage. And the most realistic acting of a 6th grader's life. So like I just
Chad the method actor
straight destroyed someone's Achilles.
Yeah.
You never run again, but had some veracity in this moment. But the Hobbit. I can't think of the one that I always wanted my Chloe to read, but she never would read, is the Westing Game. That's a book that like I remember from.
Oh, with the mansion, the murder mystery in the mansion.
Yeah, and you have to.
Yeah, I read that one.
I remember loving that and being like so sucked into the idea of books as puzzles and of like the way to figure things out. And it like in retrospect, I wonder if it didn't teach me how to read in certain ways, because you had to then pay attention to clues and to like what was going on. It wasn't just the surface. It was that something was being said to you that was not, just on the surface layer.
Yeah, I read the first chapter of that, and I just watched the movie Clue instead.
That also works. A classic. I've watched that a million years ago, but people talk about that movie like it's really like wonderful. Is it wonderful?
No.
It can't be.
No, it's a movie based on a board game. They're usually pretty good. I haven't seen Jumanji, but I hear that one's killer. That's a book though. That's actually a book. So.
We're going to see Cross the Spider-Verse today, so whatever the hell it's called. I don't actually know. It's just like Spider-Man, man. There was the other. So there's the some of the advice I think is interesting too. One, it's like that kind of like you change it into like a successory sort of thing, but it's like the wrong version of the successory. So even like 197, like he's talking about all those who came up to say that they also wrote. So after he's done with his talk, and he's like, they should watch out for something even worse, becoming a writer's writer. Or to all those who came up to say that they also wrote and thought they wanted to be writers, he offered the warning, even though, how he hated all sports analogies in the realm of literature, that they should never forget the fact that many people think they want to be boxers until they actually have to fight people who are totally and absolutely convinced that they want to be boxers, or that it is far nobler and more epic to lose by KO fighting for a style than it is to get an okay win by points with something merely plot-driven and functional. And that's one that I thought was like a great. That's really the X Writer's motto and like whatever base that he leans on, and it is that kind of like go all out, leave it all on the field and lose rather than like be mediocre and let people praise you for having a solid plot.
Yeah. There was one that I kind of was I wrestle with. And it's the idea of, it's like with IKEA, being considerate of the reader when you're writing versus, and it sounds like the writer's more like, but what about being considerate of the writer?
Yeah.
When you're writing, right? are you writing for yourself or are you writing for someone else?
Or you're in for like the craft and ability, like the concepts.
Sure.
I mean, I know that I'm on the opposite side. I don't think that, I think that the writer doesn't need to pay that much attention to the reader.
Okay.
I think that there's like, I think that if you make something that's completely impenetrable, you might not have a lot of readers. We have a book like that coming out not too long from now. But that's the choice. Not that you have to, that your function as a writer should be to produce things that are only for readers, unless you're just trying to be like a James Patterson or like a commercial author.
I was gonna say, because there's commercial, there's commercial work and then there's literary work, and sometimes they cross a little bit. But you can usually kind of put them in one of the two ghettos, right? You can wall it up and you can put, this is commercial, this is literary. And I feel like, the literary is more interested in the writer and the commercial is more interested in the reader, right?
Right. And the reader process.
Yeah. And I feel like that's maybe where some of that hatred for IKEA comes from, the fact that they're very commercial, but they wear this mask of importance and being literary and like this. They want to be liked, they want to be loved, but at the same time, they wear this cloak of how important the work is, how dedicated to the craft the work is, and it's so like IKEA comes off as just so disingenuous and utterly hateable, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's too, like, there's the using like a music analogy, there's like the way that you can write that hits all the beats that people are already expecting, and that's really, reaffirming. Like we enjoy kind of being able to predict what's next and seeing that we were right and that it feels good, and there's like a reinforcement of like, this is how a movie works, this is how a book works, this is how a scene works, this is how, and if there's like little surprises within that, that's fine. But the structure is like what it's supposed to be. Pop songs are sort of pop songs. Like there are better and worse ones, but a lot of them fall into using a lot of the same sort of tropes and ideas. And then there's like the writer or musician that does something that does not fit that mold. But over time, if the reader or the listener listens to that and gives it a value, or assesses it, gives it a value that it would be worth understanding how it works, that then can become the mainstream thing. Like there's a lot of like history of like classical music going from like things that were so offensive and like unlistenable and just like screech worthy to being like, completely commonplace Disney songs now, because we evolved into like understanding what that next version was. And with writing, if it's like only going to be serving the reader and serving, and I think that the ex-writers bit would be like, serving what reader? Serving these fucking assholes? Like these people don't read for reading, they read to like, look at their tweets and as they're shitting. Like they're not like reading. So why are we, catering to something that is essentially illiteracy, but with like a book in front of it? And his being like, why not have a new form of things that people could get into? And I think that the sort of Delkey archive argument of it that I've always made is that people that don't like those books deserve books too. People who don't like commercial books and don't find that entertaining and do not find plots and like realism to be at all satisfying deserve to have books too. And
maybe it's like a small, it's a clique or a cabal, but they deserve shouldn't they have literature?
Literary writers as a marginalized community is probably a step too far, but the sort of vibe there is like, well, you like that shit, like we're never going to produce that. That's impossible. This is how non-profits have to exist.
But the writer also serves up that dichotomy really well using science fiction films, right? When it's talking the difference between Spielberg's Close Encounters of the Third Kind versus Kubrick's 2001.
Who was it that it's somewhere it's referenced in here that someone really loved Close Encounters of the Third Kind, right? That was in this book.
It was. Yeah, I think it was talking about. It's probably like IKEA or something.
Yeah.
But it was someone's favorite, greatest sci-fi movie was that one.
I remember that movie used to spook me. Like as a kid, I have to admit.
I don't know. If it's Steven Spielberg, it's always just about him trying to figure out why his parents got divorced as a kid. That's like all of his movies. That's
because one of them was Ian.
Yeah, somehow everything with Spielberg is always about divorce.
Oh my God. That's very true. That's
You
interesting.
see, his dad was a computer scientist and his mom was a musician. And how did the aliens speak to the broken family at the end? Through music. There you go. There it is. It all goes back. It all goes back to his parents' divorce and how it's probably his fault.
I love it. I love it. That's so perfect.
E.T. So the family just had a divorce and we're going to have an alien in it. Like, oh, again?
Really? How do we keep doing this? There was
the Fablemans. So the family's having a divorce and we're going to be filming movie. Like, again? Get over it. How old are you? I hate you.
Come on, man.
I hate you, Steven Spielberg.
So many of those movies are so dumb. I was looking for this part. There's like the part where, oh, here it is. So this is not, this is the part I do not think is me, but the reference to a young publisher part is kind of a little like, it's like,
Chad, I'll stop you right there, Chad. You're not young.
Not young. So I don't count. I don't count. But there's a whole bit where it's like, the key to success is to find a book that's written for people who don't like to read, a book that looks like a book, but that really is something else. A young publisher had once, with a conspiratorial wink, confessed to him, which I think is a pretty funny line. And the young publisher gets ripped on a bunch here for like those kind of statements of like, they don't know what they want. You got to give them the book that's not really a book, that like, blah, blah, blah. I love it. And then the part that I do think is funnier is, and then I'm going to take total unearned credit for, is that he wants to have a prize for after you die called the Post Prize. I like that.
That's great.
I'm going to steal that. You can only give this out after people are dead, the Post Prize. Although those prizes that he describes as alternatives are really fun too, where it's like someone secretly decides to give you an award early on in your career and then make sure that everything good happens to you. And then on your deathbed is like, by the way, you won this prize 30 years ago.
No.
But we didn't let you know. Fun. I don't know. Is there any other sections of this part that you wanted to?
No, I think that covers it really well. I mean, I was really fascinated with how much focus is put on IKEA. And so I'm really looking forward to how this cannibal monster of a writer gets resolved with our writer. So I'm really
there is one more plot point that's worth mentioning there. I don't remember if this is in the dream part or not, but it might be. Is that when the X-Writer goes to, and what happens in Invented Part, goes to the Large Hadron Collider, wants to break in, hits a lot of buttons so he can become the God Particle, to like merge with the God Particle to rewrite the world in his own style, so on and so forth. He gets arrested because it doesn't work, and IKEA bails him out. Is what's referenced in here, that IKEA bails him out and like gets him out of trouble in the Swiss prison. But then there is a recording of all of his rants from being inside the Large Hadron Collider, and there are a lot about IKEA and about how much IKEA sucks. It's a good plot point too. But so, is there any line that you have as a favorite?
Yeah, mine work out real quick.
I've got mine.
If you got yours teed up, go ahead and for a golf. We'll do a golf sports analogy. If you got it teed up, grip it and rip it, Chad.
I'm LIV all day. No, I'm definitely not. There's a funny joke I saw about that I was going to send you. About how the PGA controls holes 1 through 8 and 12 through 18, but the Saudis get to do 9 through 11.
Oh no! Oh no! Wow.
Yeah, rough. For everyone who's not aware of what's going on, it's not worth going into. Page 202. Read like Dracula and write like Frankenstein.
Love it.
That's our line. We got our Dracula back again. It's got to be coming soon.
All right. Mine comes from page 173. IKEA, who was always wearing a mask that ate away at his face, but was a mask of his own face. IKEA, who had achieved a level of pathological self-satisfaction only comparable to that of someone who masturbates while fantasizing about himself masturbating.
I have that in yellow too. It's a great line. The thing that follows that is interesting too, where it references that the boom is what made Carmen Balcells, which is true, as a important and powerful agent. It's kind of interesting, like little twist on history there. But I love that, fantasizing about themselves masturbating. So next week, this will be real wild because we're gonna be so far apart in time zones because we'll be in Latvia next week. But
wow, okay.
So
we'll figure something out.
The times and all that kind of stuff later and announce it. But we go up through page 281, and then which is nice because there's 281, and then the next week I think we hit the end of part 1. That's true. So then we hit the end of part 1, and things will shift and move and change a little bit. But we'll go to there. As always, you can rate and review us wherever you get your podcasts. Leave comments, leave questions. Always, when we do these live, if anyone has any questions and wants like explanations or wants to like point out something that we missed, that's awesome. You can join in on a live chat and run alongside, and we'll post it on here. But otherwise, I have nothing else to say.
As it should be.
As it should be.
All right, till next time.
Out of this podcast.
I can feel that I'm sinking. Yeah, the water is freezing and I want to go. I can see what I'm feeling. I can feel that I'm sinking. Yeah, the water is freezing and I want to go.